Hey, morning, John. How you doing?
Good, Jeff. How are you?
Pretty good. Getting ready for the weekend. You have much snow?
No, we don't have any snow yet. Hopefully, it'll stay away.
Yeah, unfortunately, we do, but that's what's happens in New Jersey. I wish I was down south in the warmth, but that's a whole different topic by itself. But we got a great show today. We're going to be discussing KPIs and what else?
Scorecards and the metrics and how they impact the business and how they increase the cost and all those degradation of service, as you mentioned while we were waiting to jump on.
Yeah,
It's you called it the snowball effect, and I cannot find a better metaphor than that.
yeah, absolutely. And what's good about it is that why we get along so good is that we both work on the shipper side. You still do. And there's just so many things that can go wrong. But when those things go wrong, somebody has to be accountable for it, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. And to kind of kick it all off, I wanted to share something a former boss imparted to me, some wisdom he gave me a long time ago, and when it comes to measuring things and scorecarding, and basically, he told us more than once. We probably heard it 100 times. If it moves, measure it. If it doesn't, paint it. So that's kind of resonated with me all these years, and that's why I'm a firm believer in KPIs. Some people love them, some people hate them, but to your point, it drives accountability and it drives efficiency because you can figure out where the pain points are, where the bleeding is, and you can address that specifically and tighten that up and make sure your dam will hold water at the end of the day.
Yeah. Yeah. And the reason why they hate it is because it points fingers at who's accountable and why things happen. That's why you call them scorecards. And that's those KPIs lead to the scorecards, but it's just not for carriers. It's also for brokers and shippers, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, everybody's got a role to play in this industry, and if we're not in all in sync and doing our best jobs, the supply chain suffers, and you get product outs and everything else, additional cost to ship, additional labor cost on your dock if your inbound or your outbound doesn't arrive on time on their scheduled appointment time. It really impacts everything. So, as a broker and a carrier and even a shipper, to your point,
Mm.
we've got to be on our game, and really the only way you can be on your game is kind of watching that, what I call a heads up display. You need to know whether you're flying right above the horizon, or you need to know if you're headed towards the mountain, and KPIs will definitely show that. It also provides a lot of trend data. And,
Yeah.
and another thing that I was thinking about, Jeff, while we were talking about this is, during your rate negotiations or your RFPs, if you have incumbency, you can use KPIs as a negotiating tool. If the service is not there, or if the claims are too high, or if they're not making their appointments, that's all part of a negotiation process. And it's beneficial on the for a shipper scorecard. To your point, if a carrier comes in, they bring in your shipper scorecard along with their carrier scorecards and say, hey, look, we're providing you with a great value here, and
Right.
this is the measurement of that value, and for that reason we would like to request this rate for that value, because you can tell, a lot of your soft costs are being minimalized, if not eliminated, because we're doing what we're supposed to be doing.
Yeah, and it's what I call the hidden bank opportunities that are the easy dollars to find once you pinpoint the areas of concern and where the issues lie, right? I mean, when you go into negotiations, that to your point, what do you mean you're not going to give me an increase? Here's what we did. We did. This is fact. This is data, and you can use that. So basically, you're taking the emotional decision making out of play, and you're using the facts and the data behind, whether RFPs are like maybe a quarter of the year now, maybe a half a year. A lot of them are not going to the annual RFP because there's so much volatility in the market right now, and nobody knows what's going on. But if a carrier is doing well, then maybe they get an increase. The same thing happens with a shipper when it's not they're not cost effective and causing the carrier more cost, and vice versa, right? It goes both ways, John.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, if you're a shipper and you're out there holding up trucks for extended periods of time, and a carrier or broker brings that to your attention, you can either streamline that and get it down to a reasonable amount of time, or you're going to wind up paying a higher price to move your goods because they're going to bake that cost, that detention cost, right in there. Or if you have a lot of tow news,
Mhm. Yeah,
that's going to come into play too. And then, when the market does get tight, and we all know from a carrier broker standpoint, it will get tight. It's not a question of if, it's a question of when. And they're trying to figure out, your carriers and brokers are trying to figure out which shippers to partner with, or which shippers to give them their capacity to. They're going to rank shippers. If you're, like I said, if you're holding them up, or you're doing a lot of tow news or whatever, they're going to pass that capacity on to a shipper that's has an ease of doing business, that gets those
right,
trucks turned in and out, that doesn't constantly change their minds, or last minute loads all the time. We know last minute loads happen,
that's
but if
right,
if that is the rule and not the exception, they're going to pass you over. And
right,
as a shipper, I've never been the 800-pound gorilla in the room. I've just never landed like that. I've
right,
always been a medium to a medium high player.
right.
And I know there's 800-pound gorillas out there. I know they are, and I know they can suck up a lot of capacity, and carriers will gravitate towards them because they do have that huge revenue stream there. So I wanted to make, as far as my shippers, my companies that I work for were concerned, and I think I mentioned it on the show before. If a carrier or broker has a truck and it's between me and the 800-pound gorilla, I want to get it, and that's by doing an ease of doing business, and a more pain-free process. And
Sure.
KPIs, to your point a minute ago, will bring those issues to the forefront, and you can work on those. And you
Yes.
can you can lower your loading rate from 5 hours to say 1.5 or 2, where it's
Sure.
reasonable. Or you could set up a drop trailer program where it's just drop and hook, grab the paperwork, and you're gone. I mean, it'll point to that. It'll always point to something. I was in the QBR yesterday with our redistributor, and they are just now starting to provide KPIs and order fill percentage, order accuracy, on time delivery. They've done claims. They've got tons of data that they're going to start providing, and we're actually going to kind of break it down into layers. We're going to separate it by the brand, probably separate it by a geographical lane or two, just to kind of see, are our distributors that we use, our last mile distributors, are they doing what they're supposed to be doing? And this is
Right.
going to point that out, because I got a lot of players in this, and everybody, again, just like I mentioned, has got to do their job to the best of their ability. Otherwise, the train just falls apart. So it's a relay race. My supplier hands it off to a redistributor hands it off to a last mile distributor. Last mile distributor takes it to the restaurant. So if all that isn't clicking, we need to know. So I got kind of like a kid in a candy store yesterday when they were presenting those KPIs to me, because I'm like, yeah, this is exactly what we need. We need to streamline this and make sure we're running the best supply chain out there.
Sure. Now, is this a new vendor, or is this an incumbent vendor that you've been doing business for a while with?
This is an incumbent vendor. We really haven't put a lot of focus on our redistributing network. In recent years, we've always had other fish to fry,
Yeah.
but now that we're kind of coming around, and we've got the final mile distributors kind of in lockstep and doing what they're supposed to be doing, now we're kind of turning our focus back to our redistributor network and make sure it's good and buttoned up and tight as well. So we want to squeeze that waste, that cost out of there, and working with them. And that's not only the transportation side of the business, but it's also the distribution side of the business.
Sure.
And making sure, are we carrying too much inventory? Are we not carrying enough inventory? What do we need to be carrying? What do we don't need to be carrying? Because there are storage and finance charges tied to all of that, because you're basically renting real estate at the distribution center is what you're doing. So we obviously want stuff to come in and go out rather quickly. Now we do have some items that are just very slow movers, and we, by federal regulations, we have to keep them in stock. One of those things would be what they call a foam ban area, where they ban the use of styrofoam products, and we have to go with an alternate product. That's not countrywide at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
So it's only in parts, usually the West, mainly California, because that's what California does.
Right.
And so we have to keep them on. We have to keep in stock. So when the restaurants need them to stay in compliance, they can order them and have them, but they're extremely slow movers. And it's just, sometimes you just have to pick your battles.
Right. So, and the reason why I asked you before, because you said that you're starting KPIs. Why weren't the KPIs started like in the beginning of the relationship to build those requirements and expectations up front? Because it seems to me, from if I heard it right, they just started doing that.
They probably have been doing that internally, but letting us get our eyes on it and seeing it and getting it kind of customized to what we need to see. That is what is starting now. This company's been with us longer than I have been with the company, so it's kind of been treated like a stepchild. And I won't say what kind of stepchild, but you know what I'm talking about.
Right.
And it was like we only focused on it when there was a reason to focus on it, and then usually it was a negative reason. So we're trying to turn that around. The redistributor came to us and said, "Hey, we want to be a better partner with you. We want you to be a better partner with us. So let's start kind of peeling the layers of that onion, and let's get a nice relationship going and be successful moving forward." And
Sure.
So that's what we just make. We just basically you have to dedicate time to what's important. So we just deemed that important and started going after that. And ultimately it's going to benefit both of us. So it's a win-win. And then we'll just go down the line and make sure our final mile DCs are doing, they're not holding the trucks up or anything like that. So that we can just get the product to our customers as quickly, as efficiently, and as safely as possible.
Right. And, to your point, when you're talking about inventory issues and fast movers or whatever, we used to do FMD, which was forecast monthly demand by client, right? And then that was part of the network design of having the right inventory at the right place at the right time, especially when you have, let's say a dozen DC facilities all over the country. You want to make sure that stock level for that specific SKU is in that area, because that's the line haul cost, right? You want to reduce those miles being traveled to decrease your annual spend or monthly spend on your budget. So that is a critical thing that you have to keep your eyes on. What is, from your point of view, what do you think is the most important KPI to you?
That's a tough call. There's several that'll sit right in that number one spot. I would probably start. I usually tend to start simple and kind of do a deeper dive. So I would say on time delivery is going to be probably the first thing I'm going to start looking at, and then follow that up by order accuracy, because that's the kind of the what and the when.
Sure.
Part of the thing. And to your point, it's like get the right product to the right place in good shape, safely, efficiently. And it starts with on-time delivery. If your on-time delivery is just not there, it's going to cause issues all the way down the road. And then on-time pickup would be in that list as well.
Sure.
You got to pick it up to get it delivered on time. You know, if you're a live load at a DC and you show up 3 hours late, their crew's still there. Their
Yeah.
crew is sitting there. Their crew is hourly, more than likely, and they're just racking it up. And then if you keep them after hours, say you show up 6 hours late for an appointment and it's after hours, then you got OT cost.
Yep.
And you know, it just drives a lot of inefficiency in the whole network, and that's going to be one of the things I look at. That's going to be one of the things I grade on. The other piece, and I was thinking about this as well. You know, we talked about just a few minutes ago. We talked about ranking shippers by ease of doing business. You can do the same thing with your carrier pool.
Absolutely.
You got a specific size piece of pie. Call it, just off the top of my head, let's say 60 million annual. And if you have a carrier that's overperforming and the KPIs reflect that, it would make more logical sense that carrier would get a bigger slice of the pie because they're being efficient. They're doing what they're supposed to be doing. Their KPIs are showing that on a monthly basis. You do have that trend analysis that says, hey, man, we've been knocking it out of the park for the last 12 months.
Right.
And you can, I'll give carrier ABC more revenue than I give carrier DEF because the KPIs are showing that I'm better off with ABC.
Right. Absolutely. I concur with what you're saying because I would have said the same thing backed by exception reporting. Now, you and I talked about this probably about 5-6 weeks ago of net and gross on-time delivery performance, right? What the transit time published, not a published transit time, but the transit time that's expected from point A to point B. Now you take seasonality and you take in weather effects and the act of gods, which have to be taken into consideration when you do exception reporting, right? As like, okay, when you think about the seasonality, my bottom line would be a 94. If all things are good and weather is fine, 99% of the time, you should be banging my dock at a specific time as asked, right? So those are like my two. Now, I get very upset because I know how I felt as a shipper. And when my carriers didn't hit the door, and I have everything staged right at my docks, ready to go because it was all appointment driven, schedule, dock identification, who's going to be in what dock at what time in hour increments. And if one guy didn't show up, that ruined the whole day,
Absolutely. Yeah.
And that made my warehouse and my guys stay extra hours. That cost me more money. So that's why I always said, I give equal opportunity to brokers and carriers to fire themselves. I never had stress because that in the contracts, that was my expectations and my requirements. If you're going to do business with me, and like you said, get a really good chunk of the pie, well, now you have to perform, and my eyes are going to be on you. If you don't hear from me, that's a good thing. You hear from me, that's a bad thing. And I want to have, either monthly, usually it's a monthly QBR, especially when you're doing millions and millions of dollars, because why let something, go forward if it's not working? You have to adjust it when it happens. Don't wait for the QBR, but communication and saying, being cordial about it, but having those tough conversations with your service providers as to, hey, what's going on? Either or. It could be, like I said, accountability on the shipper side, accountability on the broker side, accountability on the carrier side. It has to be identified quickly. That's why those KPIs are extremely important, as well as the follow-up on the scorecard, because that's what really matters.
Yeah. And that same meeting, we discussed exactly that. They were bringing me quarterly results because it was a quarterly business review, and I get it. And I told them, I said, look, as soon as we get these KPIs really dialed in, I want to see it every month, because if we need to react to something, I don't want to wait 90 days to know we need to react to it. I want to know it, no more than 30 days out. So hopefully by the time we get to the 90 days, it's been corrected and it's a non-issue anymore.
Yeah,
And
and one more thing too, and one more thing too. Please don't let me as the shipper be the one that calls you up and say that we have a problem.
oh,
Never,
absolutely.
never, never.
Absolutely.
You as a service provider or a carrier better beat me to the punch. I'll tell you that right now, because
Absolutely.
if you know that something, when I don't hear a phone call, I mean, or see an email or get a phone call, then I know you're hiding something. And when I have to
Absolutely.
pursue you, because right now you're like, holy shit, this just happened. How am I going to tell him, man? Listen, just tell him there's a snowstorm. Just tell him whatever it might be. They're BSing you. That is the most inappropriate thing to build a business relationship. It's always foremost to tell them the truth. Be
And
upfront and tell it the way that it is. If you effed up, you effed up. You know,
yeah,
tell them.
and that goes all the way down the chain. The one thing I do tell my carriers and brokers is don't have my customer call me and tell me there's a problem. You call me and tell me there's a problem before they do. And I'm going to get on the phone with them and say, hey, we got a challenge here, but here's our solution and here's the ETA. I
Yep.
want I want to be proactive with my customers just like I want my carriers to be proactive with me. So that goes, like I said, all the way down the chain. We all answer to somebody, right? We all answer to the end customer at the end of the day. And I don't expect anything out of my carriers and brokers that my customer doesn't expect out of me. Jeff, I think you froze, buddy. You look good though. That's a nice shot of you. Okay. Well, folks, sorry we're having a little bit of technical difficulties. Are you there?
Yeah, I just had a brown out over here.
It's,
So
it's all it's all that damn snow.
yeah, I seriously hold on a second here. Let me just see. I'll get back here in a second. Oh man, this is not good. Oh, it really screwed up my system here when it went down. Unfortunately, I can't bring up my camera because it's only allowing me on the integrated camera, not the USB camera. So I don't know how you want to push forward on it unless you want to back out and come back on, and hopefully, because all my monitors, everything is down except this.
I can back out and come back in if you need me to.
Yeah, and then I'll do the same thing. I apologize to our audience, but this happens when it's snowing. So, all right, let's back out and then get right back on.
All right, sounds good.
Yep. Wow. John, you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah, my camera got screwed up because it just like shorted out the whole system when everything went down.
You wanna call time of death on this one?
You know what? Yeah, I mean this really stinks. I mean, all my other monitors aren't coming up either. This
Okay.
sucks.
One thing I failed to mention before we jumped on, next Friday after
Yeah.
Thanksgiving, I'm going to be traveling
Okay.
back from Mississippi, so we may want to just skip next Friday and pick up the Friday after.
That's fine. I have to apologize because I mean, I can try restarting this thing. Let me try restarting this thing one more time, and if it doesn't do it, then we'll just call it the time of death.
Sounds good to me.
Yep. So I'm going to shut this whole thing down, restart it, and let's just see. I hope nothing burned out, man. Damn it. All right. I will hopefully I'll see you back one way or another. Just jump back on in a few minutes, and if my camera's not working, we'll just call it.
All
So
right.